Okay, we are pleased to welcome Karrie Webb to the mixed bag. Karrie's won, just 41 times out on the LPGA Tour. 7 of those were major championships. She has won the elusive and sometimes mysterious Super Career Grand Slam. One of one there. She's a World Golf Hall of Famer, LPGA Hall of Famer. Welcome, Karrie Webb. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this is great. Karrie, this is the first time we've met. Matthew, you guys ran into each other a bit back in the day, right?
Oh yeah, I was always remember when I first got on tour. I was always kind of scared of Karrie and her steeliness on the golf course. But got to know each other through the years working for Michelle. She's always been helpful and nice to Michelle. They're good friends. So and good friends with Marina. I gotta make fun of Marina. She sent me your contact information. How she has you saved in the phone. It's just all caps Webby the goat as her contact in your phone.
She only just recently admitted that to me, so I didn't know that until about a month ago.
We'll turn her in for that. So you deserve that. Or she deserves it at least.
I bet she's not the only one that's got goat or something else. You're probably in many people's phones like that, Karrie.
It's probably a term that's a little overused these days, but
that's fair. Yeah,
when we talked to Grace, what'd she call you? She called you the Hoff. She said she calls you Hoff, the Hall of Famer. That could be the new goat, maybe. Yeah.
She might have got that from Mel Reed, actually, if she started that.
That's fair.
That's a good one. I liked it. But yeah, we wanted to, well, for many obvious reasons, have you join us. Just so well decorated and one of the best that's ever done it. But we really wanted to have you on because you're going to be playing some golf here soon. You're going to be teeing it up in the U.S. Senior Women's Open for the first time this year at San Diego Country Club. We've talked, about a lot about retirements or so-called retirements and whatnot. You never officially retired. You just kind of, stopped playing as much and stopped playing as big of a schedule. But what are you most looking forward to at San Diego? What are kind of the expectations getting back into, a big time USGA event?
Yeah. I think it's never a tournament that you're anxious to be old enough to play in. A few years ago, someone said to me, I can't wait until you're old enough to play in the US Senior Open. And I'm like, well, I can wait. It's okay. I'm in no rush to get to 50, but that came and went in December. So, I guess I started thinking about it. I think it's a little bit of anticipation. Someone asked me if I was excited the other day, and to play a US Open, I think the only time I ever said I was excited was before I played my first ever one. And then after that, I looked forward to it, but I knew what was coming. So having not played a US Senior Open, there's, the unknown ahead of me again.
Do you think like the senior, I know it's still a USGA setup, it's still a USGA event. Do you think like as a senior event and the other ladies, have you had any feedback on how they set the golf course up? Do they still kind of put the screws to everything like they usually do?
Yeah, I think they, move tees around and stuff like that. I've heard, obviously, none of us are playing competitively much at all. So I think they're aware of that going in. So, the course isn't, set up to, I don't think their aim is for us to struggle. Some of us might, but it might be because of the setup.
I mean, it's an awesome field this year. You got, Dame Laura, Julie, Amy Alcott, Annika, Beanie, Laura Diaz, and some others. Any old friends you're looking to kind of rekindle with in some practice rounds or maybe have some dinners with? Or who are you most looking forward to seeing next week?
Yeah, well, I played a Legends event a couple of weeks ago, so I did catch up with a few girls there. But I actually played the whole tournament with Julie. So and had dinner with her every night. So I think I've got her covered. I don't need to I don't need to catch up with her that week. But I haven't seen LD. I'm actually playing a practice round with Nadine Goll, who won the US Senior Amateur last year, another Aussie. So we played maybe 1 year of amateur golf. She's a little bit older than me before she turned pro. And then I played on the LET for a year, and she was out there playing. And then she moved back to Australia and had kids and got her amateur status back. And So she's playing the senior amateur circuit now. So she was excited last year when she won. She hit me up straight away for a practice round this year. So looking forward to playing with her. But there's plenty of girls, that I'm really looking forward to seeing. So that'll be fun.
What's the practice routine been like? Have you been kind of had to like really get back into the old swing of things, or is it kind of just like it is what it is at this point? Kind of just like we'll see what we get.
Yeah. Well, I hurt myself in the lead up in between the Olympics last year and I played the Women's British Open at St Andrews. I went to Ireland and I hurt myself, and I think it took a while for to really work out what had happened, but I didn't play golf. So I hurt my neck, which I'm always dealing with my neck, and tore a tendon in my elbow. So I really didn't. I played 18 holes in mid-November, and then I didn't play another 18 holes till I think it was the end of April this year. So I'd only hit balls every once in a while to see where I was at with the recovery. So I'm very lucky. This is the first injury I've ever had to deal with. So but the problem with that is that I just went back into like some of the worst of the worst old habits.
Right.
So I actually had to go and get a lesson. So I've been
Wow.
working with a young guy, Kellen Erdman, at High Ridge where I practice. So yeah, he's got me back on the straight and narrow a little bit. I sort of know where it's going now and how far I'm hitting it, so that's a positive.
Yeah, I mean the old competitive instincts always come back. I'm sure you'll have that grit and demeanor when the game time comes on. I mean, also it's hard to not go to San Diego if you're for a week when you're hanging out in Florida in August. You kind of can't turn that down either way.
Yeah, right. I just saw the long-term forecast, and it's like the most perfect weather ever. So compared to how hot it is down here right now.
You can't beat it.
Yeah, gotta get out of the swamp.
I was when kind of preparing and looking back at just some of the career highlights and whatnot, and the lack of injuries did I was like, there really wasn't much of a layoff at all. So that's wild that it happens, when you're not playing a whole lot. Is that the longest you've gone without playing? And when was the last time you had a lesson? I guess I want to kind of ask too.
Yeah, that's the longest I've gone without playing. And I was home in Australia for a lot of it, and it was similar weather to what I'm dealing with here in Florida, but we had lots of rain as well. So it was kind of good that the weather wasn't great, because it didn't really encourage me to go out and try more than I did. And so, but as far as the lesson, my coach that I started with, Calvin Heller, who's been a part of my team my whole career, he passed away almost 3 years ago. So I kind of have really missed his guidance. Well, I definitely have missed his guidance when it has come to the few times I've played. So I every once in a while in the last couple of years I've gone to see Martin Hall, just because I've known Martin a really long time, and Martin understands like who I've been coached by, and sort of understands my terminology. I'm not super techie or anything like that. So I work with him. I was playing a lot of golf with Kellen Erdman out at High Ridge, and when I first got back to Florida and started playing a little bit again in April, May, and I just said, mate, can you just have a look? And I have no idea where it's going, so can you just have a look? And so we've been working the odd lesson here and there, just to so that the old stuff doesn't creep back in.
Nice. Your name has come up a couple of times this year as we talked to some tournament winners, notably Minjee and Grace Kim winning their majors this season have brought you up in some vital conversations they've had with you in the last couple of years, and notably they've been a part of your scholarship program. So many people might not know much about your scholarship program and how that started and what all entails of that. Can you help kind of describe what kind of kicked all that stuff off?
Yeah, I'd been looking for a way for a number of years. So we've been doing this now. I think it's 18 years. And so
Yeah, 2008.
yeah, I'd been looking for quite a few years before that, and there was it used to be the LGU and the AGU in Australia, and I could never really work anything out with the LGU. But once the government made them merge, and they became Golf Australia, that then I was able to talk to, it sort of came back up again, and what came out of it was one of the best experiences of my life was that I won the Greg Norman Jr. The very first year that Greg had his junior event. And that year, the overall boys and girls winner got to fly to Florida and stay at his house for a week. And, I'd grown up looking up to him, and, it was just, I think out of everything, I think it was more that you just realize that he was just a human being, just like you are. He had, got up and helped give his kids breakfast and all that. But then we went and played golf with him. So, it was just a really great experience. And, I was looking for a way of being able to do that with the young Australian girls. And so they compete. There's two ways they can qualify. There's two winners every year. One way is they compete in a series of events in Australia, and then the top, it's like a player of the year sort of thing. There's points allocated for finishes. The overall points leader of that gets one of the scholarships, and then and it used to be the two, but since the world amateur rankings have been around, we've included the top leading amateur from Australia as the other scholarship, so we can include the girls going to college in the States. So they get a monetary scholarship to help with, paying for coaching and travel and whatever they want to use it for. But for me, the greatest thing that I think I get out of it as well is that they travel over and spend a week with me each year. And when I was playing in the majors, it was either the US Open or the KPMG Women's PGA. They would stay with me for the week and, watch how I prepared and, watch how I unwound after the day as well. And then ask any questions they want. They walk practice rounds inside the ropes and get to meet some of the other players. But it was really just to show them, what to aim for and what level they need to aim for and want to be someday. And honestly, to have Minji's won 3 majors, and then Grace has won 1, and Greenie's won 1. 5 majors out of all the girls that have come through, and all the number of wins around the world. It's it's really special. But for me, it's just to have that bond with that next generation of Aussie girls coming through is really special to me.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember, like, you'd always had that posse with you at the major, so it's kind of like one of those interesting, I remember seeing Grace was such a, like, scrawny little girl in groups there. Those years in the majors when, like, especially KPMG, when you had, like, your whole crew out there and it was, like, this whole posse walking on the fairway with you. But what are you telling these girls as they're making it so successful, do you think? Is there a certain it's just, like, going through all the motions or just kind of learning a bit about it? What's the secret sauce that's getting them to win so much?
I don't know if how much my input has really helped that, but I think it's just creating that that vision for them, giving them access to being out there and feeling what it feels like, even before they get there. I'd never even watched an LPGA event before I played in my first one. So, I think, having the experience of being at a major prior to you actually teeing it up, sort of you get to see what it's all about before you actually have to, walk in between, inside the ropes and compete.
Yeah, I mean, you got off to a very successful start when you got going, but, like, do you think that's kind of accrued? Like, now you watch these other ladies come out and the new crop of LPGA players, like, and do you think that's them being exposed to all this? Is that what's making them so successful so fast?
I think so, but I also think Golf Australia has really changed their program. I've challenged them along the way to, um, to do more with the women, give them more exposure. I think there was a time once there was, that the merger was there, that, the guys were getting more experience and more exposure to these bigger events than the girls. But, the proof's in the pudding that, they've definitely done some really good work. they've hired, so one of my first scholarship winners, well, my first one, Steph Nars, just recently taken a job with Golf Australia, and Stacey Peters was on that first trip with Steph. So they both work for Golf Australia now, and I actually think the girls have even more access to better experience because they have two women that actually lived and breathed professional golf, so they know exactly what needs to be done to work on your game, but also the emotions that everyone go through throughout their career.
I think it's funny. We're talking to Minji, and she gets done winning, KPMG, and goes through like what she went through last year. And she said she spoke to you in the off season a bit. Were you instrumental in getting her the long putter? Was that your idea?
No, definitely not. Definitely not my idea. But it's funny. She looks so comfortable with it. I was like, I might need
Yeah.
to try that.
I know. Yeah, and then, shortly after we have Grace and the wild finish. And when we talked to Grace, we talked about the video that the Golf Australia crew kind of took from that chip in. And I'm assuming you may have had a similar reaction with that chip watching and on TV. But I think what Grace kind of talked about, what Minji's talked about, Hannah's brought it up, Steph as well, is that the family and this is a tight knit crew, and they all have kind of you to look up to as a mentor, and just how amazing is it to see the scholarship and these players now winning at the peak of this game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's so special to watch them compete and be in contention, and then to win is just such a special feeling for me. Like when Grace won and the way she won at Evian was just amazing. I feel like sometimes I'm almost more excited than they are. When Hannah won KPMG in 2019, we were all staying in a house together, and that year, well, Grace Kim was the scholarship winner that year. We're in the house together, and I think I celebrated like I had won that night. Probably not the best showing of a mentor that night, but I showed him how to celebrate anyway. But I think the closeness that they have, I think, sort of comes from when the scholarship girls are out on tour. Even this year, I had the two recent scholarship winners at KPMG in Frisco, and we have an Aussie dinner, so they're in and around that Aussie group already. It's not like you know it's not like you come out on tour and you don't really know anyone. I think that's what's been so special about this new group, is that they just bring everyone in as soon as they come out on tour, because they have had something to do with them along the way. And the tournaments we play in Australia, Golf Australia is really good at putting those girls in groups with those LPGA players, so that they get to know them. And then once they get out on tour, there's already that close-knit family there.
The tour life can be quite lonely, as we've heard from many players, and imagine it can be even lonelier when you're coming over all the way from Australia, playing in the States, figuring it all out. We hear that it's lonely for the American players too. So, was it like that when you were coming up? Was it pretty lonely when you started playing regularly in America? And was there anybody that you had like mentorship wise on the women's side? I know you talked, growing up and watching Greg do what he did on the men's side of things, but was there anybody from the women's side who kind of guided you and was your mentor?
Yeah, well, I played a year on the LET before I came to the LPGA, but the Aussie girls even then were really good at, helping, whoever was new on tour coming out. And, especially back then, it was like, how do I get from the airport to the hotel?
Right.
That they just, they would tell you where you should stay and where you should go eat. It was tight knit, probably not to the extent that it is now. But I think I don't think I ever felt lonely. But I feel like this generation of players surround themselves with their team, and they're not forced to make friends. And I think where the Australian girls are so close is that they're not traveling week in and week out with mom and dad and sister and brother and swing coach, short game coach, physio. That they do have support staff with them, but they very rarely are just going out to dinner with that whole team. They're getting together, they're staying in houses with each other, and they have that friendship, I think. And I think staying together as Aussies makes you feel like you're closer to Australia than you are, and I think they're doing a good job with that.
Who are the current scholarship winners? If you just go ahead and plug their names so we can know, so put some future bets on them in a couple of years.
Okay. Jazzy Roberts was one, and Sarah Hammett. Sarah's actually starting at USC this fall, so
Nice.
yeah, they're two to look out for sure.
Jazzy Roberts, great name.
Yeah.
Name.
Yeah. Well, heck, we had another Aussie showed up, almost had a good run at the USAM. Oh, that Skatesbrook there, like, actually had a good run at it. She had some good action on her.
Yeah, I haven't met Ellie yet. So she's sort of just coming through. Like she was just probably top 3 in the points this year. So now with that finish at the USM, I'm sure our world ranking will jump up a lot.
Yeah, so it's pretty competitive to make the scholarship program. It seems like it's like a kind of a play for kind of situation there back home.
Yeah, and I think that's what has been good about the scholarship as well. Like, they're competing not just for the experience of spending the week with me, but for a monetary scholarship that goes a long way to paying bills. So it is definitely. I know that the girls set out each year that's one of their goals is to win that.
Well, Grace is talking about our trip. You guys had a nice little docket of golf courses on your trip. I think that's also a good thing to be aiming for as well.
Yeah.
Grace was kind of humble, saying, "Oh, I won it 4 times." I'm like, "Yeah, if you won it 4 times in a row, it was pretty impressive."
She did. She's won it the most, and that year. So she won at 18, then 19, and then 20. Obviously, she couldn't come over. And then in 21, she was over for the Augusta Women's Amateur, and she just stayed over. And because she didn't want to have to do quarantine. And I said to her, I can take you back to the women's PGA, but I'm not going to play. And I don't know what I don't know what you're going to gain from that experience because you've already done it twice. And I said, where's the US Amateur this year? And it was at Westchester Country Club. And I'm like, why don't we just do a road trip? And one of those that'll be one of the courses we play as the early practice round. So and that was and for someone that's won it 4 times, like that, she deserved to have that sort of one-on-one trip. But yeah, she was getting, I'd never played Pine Valley and I'd never played Winged Foot, so we're both playing them for the first time.
I think just spending the week and everything else you get with the scholarship is pretty invaluable, and then that just kind of takes it to a whole nother level. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it was good because we were driving a lot, and when the time that she had spent with me, when I'm playing, obviously, there's a time and a place that they can sit down and talk to me and ask me questions, but you sort of don't get that in-depth conversation, and so we really had some really good chats that week we spent together.
Very cool.
Is there many times when you're at a major having one of these ladies here and you're like, had a fit or something? You're like, maybe don't do that. Just ignore that part of the moment of the round, but it'll be all right. Just maybe take some notes of what not to do there.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm sure I did, but I think for the most part, I think that's what was great for me was that I knew I couldn't lose my head in front of them, which I tended to do at a major once in a while. So. Yeah, it was good because I knew they were watching every move, so I definitely was on my best behavior.
We've talked a lot on this podcast about just what's happening with women's sports. We've got a new commissioner in charge. When you look back at your time and the progress that's been made, there's a lot of talk about the purses and the money and how much that's increased in getting the RNA and AIG and elevating these majors to the level that there are now has been significant. What's been most impressive to you? And kind of on the flip side, where do you maybe see kind of the biggest need for and room for improvement?
I think we've been lucky in the timing of, companies now, and their investors wanting to know where they're putting their sponsorship dollars, and that they want to see parity across the board. So I think, that's been to our benefit. And and then having, a former commissioner like Mike Wan go to the USGA, you know, he he's always batting for us, I think, and he knew what he was doing when he raised that US Open purse the first year, that the other four would have to follow, which then also makes other events have to follow as well. So I think, from that standpoint, we are pretty healthy, but I still think too, in the last couple of years, we've really missed this, increase in women's sport and the popularity of it. I think we really need to jump on that a lot more than what we have. I just feel like we're not in the conversation when it comes to popular women's sport. And 20 years ago, it was women's golf and tennis. So we have the athletes and the personalities to be in that conversation, if not the preeminent professional women's sporting organization again. So we just need to get back in that conversation.
How is that attention? I'm kind of curious. Is it back home in Australia? Is it a kind of a different focus, mostly tennis, or is it kind of like I feel like golf's always a big focus back home in Australia. What's it kind of like there at the moment?
Yeah, women's sport has been really popular back there too. We had the Women's Football World Cup a couple of years ago, and the success of the Australian women's team, the Matildas. So that really, it was already growing. Australian women's cricket has become quite popular, and then the different codes of football, rugby and AFL. And obviously with tennis, we had Ash Barty, who was number one for a while. So women's sport is definitely on the rise. At the Olympics last year, the women won more medals than the men, and more gold medals than the men. So it's definitely, we're in the same boat in Australia. I think what Minji and Grace have done have definitely started putting us back in that conversation in women's sport, but we weren't a part of that conversation either. So again, Golf Australia and the Women's PGA and the PGA of Australia, they really need to jump on what Minji and Grace have done this year and really propel it forward to another level.
Yeah, gotta get that Australian Open back on the LPGA schedule. I miss that event.
Yeah.
So this year's kind of been an interesting year. Obviously, we've not had one repeat winner at all this year. So it's kind of like there's this major parity issue on the tour, it seems like. In your prime time, there was kind of like those four strong players, Julie, Annika, LD. And how do you feel that having a strong core of like 4 or 5 players kind of propels the tour as a whole? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think the tour is healthier when there's 2, 3, 4 names that everyone's talking about, every week, and then the rest of the tour is sort of gunning to be one of those 4, 5 players. I don't know when the last time it was that we went this far into a season without a 2-time winner on tour. But it is odd. I think I think it shows the depth, obviously, of the talent on the LPGA, but I feel like more could be done perhaps to separate the field a little bit in the course setups and stuff like that. I think I know we have to be aware of slow play and timing of our rounds, but it seems like course setups are done so that we play fast rather than there be separation for the elite dominating a golf course because they are better, rather than just getting around, quickly. Playing 3 of the 4 par 5s as 3 shotters, you're essentially playing 7 par 3s. So, I just, I think there needs to be a shake-up in how the courses are set up to greens need to be firmer, faster. If we have weather, that's one thing, but, I just think all those things separate the cream from the crop, and I just don't think that's done as much as it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You're not the first person to say that on this podcast, so you're not alone. We're gonna get the setup committee together.
I'm glad that it's being talked about though, and it's the pace of play conversation is important too, but I'm with you. I think that on the men's side of things, you see the whether it's the Rory strength off the tee or Scotty with his approach player. I mean, anything from Scotty this year, honestly, but you see them being able to separate because of those skill sets. And I'm with you that it seems like a lot of the courses that are played, and maybe it's a course that you can't do much to it to separate, but some you can certainly tuck some pins to highlight those like Minji's approach play to kind of separate. And yeah, it's tricky. There's a lot of moving parts. The pace of play portion is important too, but I certainly am with you that I think that would help. Let's showcase the top talent as best we can, week in, week out.
Yeah, I agree.
In your prime back in the early 2000s, is pace of play such an issue as it is now? Or do you feel like that's a whole new, like, it's kind of just a different thing now?
I mean, it was always talked about, but if we played in over 4.5 hours, we were slow, So,
Yeah.
and then it's just, and now if you play in 4.5 hours, you're winning,
I'm wondering what changed all that.
Yeah, I just, I don't know. I think, well, I think when kids are being taught pre-shot routine when they're 6 and 7 years old, I think that doesn't help. I think, we refine that when they get to their mid-teens. I think we don't start teaching pre-shot routine when they're 6 and 7. It's just stuff like that they just get into
Right.
these really slow routines, and it's hard to get out of once you've done that.
They teach it very early. I am proof of that. I have 9 and 8-year-olds, and they were working on that at their little group lesson. And we go out and we play the little par 3. And my husband is like, what are you guys doing? What are the let's just take a practice swing and hit the ball.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're right. It starts very, very young. And
Yeah.
if you think they have 10 years of that, and then they're out, starting their professional career, that's 10 years of stuff you got to undo, and that's set in their ways for everybody that's coming out now.
If you're slow when it doesn't matter, when you're not making a putt to pay your bills, imagine how much slower you get once it is for real.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think and for me when I was a kid, getting off school and in the winter time, I mean, we'd play in like group of 7, and we'd play 18 holes in 2.5 hours walking. You'd just be running and hitting and running and hitting, and it was just as much a goal to play 18 holes before it got dark as it was, to play well and beat the boys. But I just don't think that sort of golf is encouraged as much as it used to be.
Nothing better, chasing sunlight. That's the best. Yeah. We had Meg Mallon on for our first episode. It was an awesome conversation talking about her career, and she saw such a range of players playing for so long, and kind of when she came up and then when she wrapped up. We were talking about, like, who, when you think back kind of at their peak, was who do you remember from your playing days that they were just kind of untouchable? And she was like, listen, I know 2 I didn't play with, but I know they were that. What she named Mickey and Babe. And then she's like, and 3 that I played with, when they were on, they were unbeatable. And she said, Beth Daniel, Laura Davies, and you. And I thought that was just just hearing that from Meg. And I grew up, Meg was my favorite because her name was Meg, like me.
Right.
And it just, it was just like, brought back so many good memories of watching those players and you when, we're growing up and kind of in middle school, high school for me. I'm wondering though, like when you think back to the peak of your career, was there someone or multiple players that was like that, even for you, when you were like, man, when they are totally on, I don't know if that's beatable?
I think someone who came on tour, I wasn't probably right in my quick peak. I did have one of my better years and competed for Player of the Year against her. It was Lorena Ochoa. When she was that peak few years there, she played so free, I think. She hit the ball a long way. Her short game was great. I mean, I probably short game wise, probably not a lot of stuff that you'd tell young kids to emulate, but she got the ball in the hole. And she did it in such a carefree way. I
Yeah.
think for me, obviously, Meg saying Beth Daniel, I didn't play with Beth at her peak, but I can only imagine what that looked like. Because I played with her at the latter part of her career, and I was always very impressed and nervous teeing it up with her. I don't think I played well very often because I wanted to show her that I was pretty good too, and I think
Yeah.
I always tried too hard. But LD for me, Laura Davies was always fun too. And I think again, I started just at the end of her peak, where she was, dominating. And I think Laura actually would have won probably 10 to 20 times more in the LPGA if she, didn't support the LET as much as she did for her peak. I think the LET owes her a lot for those years because she was going back and forth across the pond a lot to play in smaller events over there to support that tour when she was still dominating and winning Player of the Years on the LPGA. But yeah, I think for me, I think what's not scared me, but made me think it was hard to beat Lorena was because I was in my mid-30s, and I already had that that they didn't have the carefreeness anymore. I had the battle scars to overcome, and I think when you see a young player playing with such freedom, I think that is always daunting because they're not scared of anything.
Good spot to end there. I mean, we appreciate you coming on and talking about your preparation for next week. I hope you play well. Knock all the cobwebs off. You should be fine. Knowing your pedigree, I'm not too worried about you. So yeah, we do appreciate the time.
It's one of my favorite weeks of the year just because we don't get to see you all out there playing very often, and it seems like it's just a reunion of sorts. I'm very much looking forward to it. There's good coverage, so people will be able to tune in and watch on TV, which I think is important too. But man, it was fun talking about some of those the glory days, if you will, because man, it's how I grew up and kind of fell in love with it, was watching you and some of the players we talked about today. So very much looking forward to watching you all, tee it up again here at the U.S. Senior Women's Open. So it was a thrill, Karrie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.